to Perk. Let's get Kendrick Perkins and his NBA predictions beginning in Houston. Perk, KD, where's he going to play next season?
Kevin Durant is going to end up in the Houston Rocket uniform. They have the pieces, Greeny. If I'm the Rockets, I'm going all in. Jabari Smith, Jalen Green, Cam Whitmore, and some picks for Kevin Durant. And don't come give me Kevin Durant don't have it no more. The one thing Kevin Durant will do when he gets to Houston is respect Ime Udoka, because we know they have a great relationship. You pair him alongside the Thompson twin with Şengün, Fred VanVleet, the Rockets looking to make some noise. That was the one thing that they were missing in this series was a closer. And Kevin Durant provides that.
Yeah, I had the exact same reaction, and yet, Windman, you were skeptical that that's what winds up happening.
When we talk about Kevin Durant trades, we're going to have what I call the KD triangle that has to be accomplished. One, you have to get a place that KD wants to go. He has been on the record saying he wants to control the end of his career. Houston probably fits that. Two, you have to have a place that is someplace that's going to be able to give Phoenix what they want. That's not as simple as it sounds. And three, you got to have agreement on a future contract, because Durant's in the last year of a contract making $55 million. With where the league is, I'm not so sure a team can give him multiple years at the max after this. So that's an unanswered question. But certainly part one and part two would match with Houston. The question is whether Houston wants to invest big-time assets and big-time money in a player who's a generation older than the core of their team.
Well, let me go to the next Perk prediction, because then I'll tie them together again for Chiney, because we touched on this one earlier. But let's get to the Giannis one here, Big Perk. Again, we're looking at the Perk crystal ball. Where do you believe the Greek Freak winds up next season?
Look, I know people want to see Giannis in L.A. I know they might want to see him in New York. But guess what? Giannis is a guy that got it out the mud and grew up in the trenches. And if I'm Giannis Antetokounmpo and I'm looking around the league, I want to head to Detroit to go play with a rising young superstar in Cade Cunningham. Can you imagine what that duo is going to do and could do together? They have the pieces. When you look at Detroit, you have Jaden Ivey, and I know he's coming off an injury. You have the big fella, Jaden Durant. You have some pieces to go package up and go bring a Giannis Antetokounmpo to pair alongside Cade Cunningham.
So you did a triangle for KD. What geometric shape does someone need to put together to get Giannis?
An arrow south to San Antonio, because what I think is going to be fascinating is somebody is going to want to be with Victor Wembanyama, and Wembanyama's salary, he's not on the max for another 2 years, and even then it'll be a lower max. The Spurs can afford a giant contract more than some of these other teams can. And next Monday is a huge day in the NBA. It's the Cooper Flag Lottery. I'd like to point out the Spurs have 2 lottery picks in this draft, a bunch of young players and a bunch of draft assets. They could pretty much trade for anybody. What it takes is someone to say, I want to be in San Antonio. That could be Giannis.
Let's say that again. The Spurs have 2 shots at it in the lottery next week, and that is how their history has formed, right? I mean, they got Robinson and they got Duncan and they got Wembanyama. The lottery has been very kind to the San Antonio Spurs. So, Chiney, we talked about this earlier this morning. You are our Houston Rockets fan and a Houston native. Give me your thoughts here. You got Giannis, you got KD. What are you looking for next season?
But Greeny, I'm not alone. Perk, you said for Giannis, you want someone, he's someone that gets it out the mud and does it in the trenches. Would you say that you've done the same thing in your lifetime? Where were you born, Perk?
In Texas.
That's what I'm talking about. Okay, so I'm not mad at these Texas options for Giannis, but I'm actually intrigued in potentially him looking at Houston. Because if we're talking about meeting a core that's closer to his age, he's 30, whereas KD is potentially, I think he's 35, 36, 37, in that range. I'm not surprised. I would not be surprised if the Rockets take a look at this option, because if you think about, the Spurs, that's obviously, better for picks. And if you're Phoenix, the number one thing you need is flexibility, because Wendy can correct me if I'm wrong. They don't control any of their assets until 2032. They want to find a way to get some of that flexibility back. But, I wouldn't be surprised if the Houston Rockets take a look at him potentially being that type of guy that can match Ime's style, someone that plays defense, that really is tough-minded, someone that you said you need a closer. If you're the Rockets, you need a starter and a closer, and that's how Giannis approaches every possession.
Yeah, look, I mean, Giannis is that guy. Go ahead, Perk. Final word, go.
The only problem I have with that, Shanae, is that I'm afraid that the Rockets would have to give up Alfred Şengün to get Giannis. And if I'm the
they can't
Rockets,
play together.
I'm looking at the Thompson twin and Alfred Şengün, and I'm saying, nah, those two guys are my foundation. They're my culture. I got to build around those guys, and I think KD fits better than Giannis Antetokounmpo with the Rockets.
I think the Rockets have a lot of options. That there's a big array of people who can help them beyond these big names.
Beloved Chiney Ogwumike, who is from Houston, but Big Perk is up early with us and joins the conversation for the first time this morning. Big Perk, the Warriors, they did it the hard way. I just told you, I was watching you guys on Friday night, and we expected them maybe to take care of business at home Friday night in Game 6. Not able to do it, turn around, do it last night with Buddy Hield. What do we say about the Rockets now as they move on, about the Warriors now as they move on to the second round to play Ant-Man and the Minnesota Timberwolves?
Well, G, I think what we have to say about them is that we think about Golden State and we think about this dynasty with Steph Curry and we think about offense, right? And yes, Steph Curry, the greatest shooter of all time, used to have Klay Thompson, which made them the Splash Brothers. But they went for championships because of their defense. And that's what we saw last night. We saw them go get it in the trenches against a team like the Rockets, who's going to make you fight and make you grind it out. Like on a night where Steph Curry didn't have it going in the first half, they found ways to get stops. And it was anchored by Draymond Green and Jimmy Butler. But to me, when I think about Steph and I think about his greatness, when he locks in defensively, he is one of a kind at that size. I saw at one point Jabari Smith, 6'9", maybe 240 pounds, tried to post him up. Steph did not give ground. So what we saw championship-level defense at its highest level, and that they're able to win games without just scoring a lot of points. And that's a great sign for the Warriors. And then they have depth, because we saw Buddy Hield, and we also saw Steve Kerr go to Kevon Looney, which I loved those minutes out of him last night.
You know, there's so many different ways to look at this, Chiney. I mean, here's a Warriors team that from the time they got Jimmy Butler, we've been hinting at, well, maybe they could be something special. Maybe they could be something special. No disrespect to the Rockets, but that, even though they were the 2 seed, I don't think we went into it thinking this is really the measuring stick. Now they get Ant-Man. They don't get LeBron and the Lakers. What is this Warriors team capable of? Chiney.
This was a validating win for Golden State, and it's halfway what Perk said. Yes, the defense was the reason why they won championships, but it's also the mantra, the motto, strength in numbers. It means that Warriors basketball is back. It might look a little different, but it's back. When you started the season, all we were talking about was protect Steph Curry's prime. Well, this game showed you why they were a little bit, rather successful in doing that over the course of the season. You get Jimmy Butler, and you're instantly more competitive.